What memories could be conjured, reflected in this three-way mirror? Life's dressing room, where time, her sole attendant, waits on you, stands at the helm of your tomorrows, guards each blocked memory, stories suppressed for sanity's sake, each of which would take you past the brink. What doors could be unlocked were you to welcome disassembled specks of wrecked reflections that today taunt your very soul? You see the all too familiar shadows in alleyways and alcoves where whispers scream in disparate rhythms to which you have danced all your life. Would you pursue fantasy as your escape? Visions, realities so far from your yesterdays, they unfold upon and inside you, sufficient to allow only shallow breaths. Take you to realms where air is sweet, where possibility greets you not with cynicism, but honor and beauty. Parts of a prism that refracted into fractured fragments, precariously poised between brilliance and indulgence. You learned long ago that such duality makes for excellent imagery, yet it is memory who strangles all your strivings. He alone is your mirrored partner who shields, blocks you from truths, warns you to forget memories that dance too close to daybreak, too close to rim fluttering eyelids and inside minds that find reverie in recurring dreams of familial bliss, only to be caught in cataclysmic scenes of chaos and decay. It is this dance that keeps memory shifted, yet somehow allows you to remain sane.
License and registration, he consents your aggravation. On the head of the fallen
Remind me that
angel.
this is a team effort. Remind me to keep going.
Time, my shirt.
Did you know that your hands came with a ripple effect?
Like silk.
We got the same dreams. I mean, blood, sweat, and tears win by any means poetry.
Sway, look at me. Is a piece of the pie too good for me?
Some may call it rock the mic. We call it poetry.
Hello. Welcome to Sojourn with Words. I'm your host, Sistah Joy, and we are thrilled to be able to come back again and share poetry with the community. And this episode, I guarantee you're going to be impressed, empowered, and enriched through the poetry of our featured poet. I'm speaking of none other than Billye Okera. And for anybody throughout the Washington metropolitan area, the DMV, if you will, if you've been around for any length of time, you've heard this poet. She's a powerhouse of a poet. And I'm happy to say she's my friend. Billye Okera is a native Washingtonian, like me, and she has been writing poetry since the age of 17. So she's definitely been at it way longer than I have. I'm just excited. Let me just share some bit about Billye. Helped to found the poetry group Collective Voices, which performed throughout the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and abroad. She performed with Collective Voices for 14 years. She is the author of the book and one-woman play, The Mourner's Bench, which received a nomination for Best Poetry Chapbook from the Underground Poets of Northern Virginia. She was also chosen as a Washington, D.C. Poet in Progress by the late Washington, D.C. Poet Laureate Dolores Kendrick. Now, Billye's second book, The Days of Me and God, was published in 2016. And her third book, On the Greyhound to Memphis, will be published in late 2020, this year, with a fourth, Stumbling Towards Calvary, scheduled for publication in mid 2021. Billye writes and performs across the spectrum of her own life and what she has experienced of sexual abuse, domestic violence, doubt, fear, divorce, depression, joy, and hope, and spirituality. She ultimately and intimately addresses these in her poetry, speaking directly to those who have done the questioning, the weeping, the walking. Now, Ms. Okera, Billye Okera, is now a member of The Right Blend, a multicultural poetry collective based in Prince George's County. She is the mother of three, the grandmother of eight, and will be welcoming her first great grandchild in April of 2021. I think I'm going to stop there as far as her bio is concerned, because clearly Billye Okera is a force. I think that's a word that is not euphemistic when you talk about Billye Okera. I tried to give her the moniker Bishop Billye, but it didn't stick. But but I think it is one of those messages that her poetry is just so powerful. And certainly she is one who believes in and anchors her life on the word. She is one who is known for her spirituality, her strength through her spirituality, and one who is sharing from the heart. I mean, there's nothing light or fluffy about poetry of Billye Okera. And Billye, welcome to Sojourn with Words.
Thank you, Sister Joy. How are you?
I'm great. I have you as a guest on Sojourn with Words. Why would I not be great? Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a while coming, but I'm happy that you are here today.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Well, we want our guests to know a little bit more about you as a poet. And let's see, there are a couple of things that I want to make sure that we do. I know you're prolific. You're writing all the time. Let's go back to the beginning. When you talk about your poetic beginnings, what does that evoke in your memory? I mean, what started it all?
I think it was just in high school. I heard the poems of Edna St. Vincent Millay, and I just fell in love with poetry. And then I also had the backdrop of growing up in the Black church, the real apostolic down home, call response preaching, and you put those two together, which should be complete opposites. But it was just a blending of, all of that I loved. And from there, at 17, the teacher said, write a poem, and I did. And the poem won an honorable mention in a citywide poetry contest. And so I've just been writing, ever since. I don't know that I've ever been without writing since then. I have a lot of poetry unpublished and stuck away because they don't need to see daylight. And so, those I won't share with you, but
right. Well,
yeah.
Well, when you believe in writing your truth, that is core to, very fundamental to what it is that you, certainly what you put out into the community at large. And you talk about poetry as a path to healing. Talk about that for what does that mean to you?
Well, I'm a survivor of abuse, of sexual abuse, emotional abuse and spiritual abuse, if you look at it. And, when I first started healing, I had always been writing, but when I first started healing, my therapist got me to start journaling. And I just started telling the truth. And so I was already doing poetry. So the poetry, the truth started coming out not in prose, but in poetry. And I've always used that as a way to generate ideas about poetry, to really sit down and tell the truth and, kind of stamp out the elephant in the room. I've never been able to do that. And so I've used it, and I'm hoping that in other people hearing it, they've had an opportunity to heal also. Because
Right.
it gave me permission to tell my truth. Even if others around me didn't believe it, I knew it was my truth. So
Right. Well, this recording, I know it won't be aired for a while, but this is actually October. This is National Domestic Violence Abuse Month.
Yeah.
And so it is even more significant that your messages be heard and honored. And it is my honor to be able to present a poet who has really made such a difference in the community where the need is so great. You've spoken at many organizations. I know as far as Collective Voices, Collective Voices debuted at the House of Ruth, a shelter for homeless and battered women. That was something that I personally know, but I know that you've continued to make a difference, to reach out in the various communities of need, and you partner your poetry and spirituality. Talk about that, would you?
Right now, I'm facilitating a support group for people who deal with depression and bipolar illness, because I think in the mental health community, I guess because I dealt with that as a result of abuse, my heart was just there. My heart was just there, and so I try to use, what I know and my relationship with Christ Jesus to bring. I'm not going to say bring healing to others, but to be in the healing process with others, because healing is a lifelong journey for me. And so in doing things like that in the community, I participate in my own healing, but I get to be in fellowship with people who have grown so much to love, that have struggled with mental health issues, and a lot of them because of abuse issues. A lot of them because of abuse issues. So I'm kind of grateful for that.
Okay. And I want to make sure that I do take a moment to let our guests know how they can be in touch with you. I don't want to wait till the end of the interview.
Okay, it's just Billye Okera at Gmail.
Could you spell Billye?
BILLYE OK at gmail.com.
Okay.
Everybody has Gmail.
Yes. Okay. Well, we definitely want our viewers to be able to connect with you if they so choose after viewing this episode of Sojourn with Words, which I view as one of the more significant episodes. Of course, I probably am biased, but I'm just very happy that you're with us. And how about we hear maybe one poem before we go back into interview, and so that our guests can hear and witness firsthand the power of your gift.
Okay, and I may not be able to read this poem. It's one of my favorite. It kind of deals with the abuse and growing up in Southeast DC and things like that. It's called Savannah Street Memory. I'm a long way from Savannah Street. I'm a long way from the boys at Douglas dwellings, the streets from Parklands to Ballou, the walls of St. Elizabeth juxtaposed between, and all the mean years since, and all the tears in the stairwells of Congress Heights, and the night smells and sounds, Sarah Vaughan in summer and smoke. My mama broke the pink slip on the door, and men pretending friendships creeping, thinking you asleep, but you never are. For the stars in the sky are falling, and the moon is turning red, and your bed has known a stranger. I am a long way from Savannah Street, Rehoboth and the bishop's flowing road, holy rollers holier than thou, now being the acceptable time for repentance and shame. But can you name the sin of hemming in the rage of a child in the aisles, mumbling in an unknown tongue, the hum of whispers in her ear, to say nothing to no one, to be nothing to no one, take everything from everyone. Wow, the stars and the skies are falling and the moon is turning red, and your bed is known a stranger. I'm a long way from Savannah Street, and the days of walking past the class of 68 now faded into middle-aged faces and calling on forgotten graces as we peer headlong into the night that came so fast, so soon past our mooning and swooning behind bleachers and teachers telling us how to overcome. And some of us were just trying to live another day and not play hide and seek and peekaboo with wino men who held my mother and bled her and led her down the path where she had to leave me by the stump while the stars in the sky were falling and the moon turning red, and my bed has known a stranger. I am ready to meet God. I am ready to stop this dream. I am ready to stop this dream, this stream of lovers, impotent and cruel, who drew their insufficiency all over me and say, see, there, demon woman, you there, voodoo lady, you make me crazy with your crazy. You make the potions hot and beg us for truth we do not want to give, and beg us for truth you do not want to know or you can't give. We all hate truth. Really? It wasn't so bad. Not really. Not a Holocaust like Masada or Middle Patches or the Inquisition or strange fruit or Hitler in 45 or Vietnam and the killing fields of Cambodia or Bosnia, Herzegovina or Sudan or Rwanda or female mutilation or millions of AIDS victims in South Africa or Iraq or oil or even Katrina. It's just that the stars kept falling and the moon keeps turning red and my bed has knew a stranger, and it seems like God turned his eyes elsewhere.
Thank
That
you.
was an excerpt, really. I didn't want to go.
Thank you,
But
Billye. Oh my gosh, so
thank you.
powerful. So
Thank you.
such imagery, such immediacy. I know I love your poetry because it just envelops you. You cannot hear your work and not be touched by it. So thank you for giving so much of yourself through your writing. That's what you do. That is absolutely what you do. When you talk about the community that has to struggle through the experience of abuse, regardless of which type of abuse. And you're talking about the ability of poetry to lead that to a path of healing. Can you talk a little bit more about how does that work for you?
Healing is creation. And you know, in the beginning, God, everything was beautiful, everything was, you know, immaculate until, you know, the forces of evil just inserted itself into creation. But create poetry gives you a time, and it gives any artist a time to go back into that creative mode. And instead of, you know, focusing on the destruction that was done to you, you can begin to build new things. You begin to build new words or to paint a new picture, or, you know, like me, I rearrange furniture all the time too. So it's anything that goes back and tries to look at God's creation and to participate in that. And I think that's the healing. I get to participate in saying new things, you know, undoing the destruction, if you will. Sometimes in undoing that destruction, you got to go in and you gotta look at that destruction in all of its rawness. So some of the poetry might sound a bit bitter, you know, and before you can get to the goodness and everything else, you got to pull the scabs off the wounds. You got to, you know, they haven't healed right, so you've got to pull the scabs off and say exactly what it is, and then you can apply the salve that you need. And my faith had to come into play, although my faith was a struggle because I grew up in a faith that people now some consider a cult. And while I got good things from it, like I got the, you know, the gospel music and James Cleveland and Matty Moss Clark, but I also got the legalism and the shame and the blame and the hell and fire and brimstone. So it took me a lot of times being a person of abuse to also undo that spiritual abuse, which really penetrates,
Okay.
especially if you heard it since you were 4 years old.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so it took me a while, but I think what it's done for me, I participate in creation.
And I think that's just so empowering to even conceptualize. And
Yeah.
clearly, your journey has brought that awareness to you, and that
Yeah,
you would share that with others is just huge. It's absolutely huge. Are there virtual formats where a person's interested in learning more or becoming connected with that type of experience can? Are you familiar with any that you can share?
No, I don't. I am planning, and I've always been planning. I am planning my own YouTube channel where I hope to share my poetry and just speak to poetry and healing.
Okay. Okay, well, we certainly very much enjoyed the first piece. Perhaps you can
Mhm.
share another poem at this time.
I want to share one that's not long, but it's just more spiritual, and it's just
Okay,
called
bef-
"I Am."
before you begin that, I think this is the perfect time for those who may have joined us after the program began. We are Sojourn with Words, and our featured poet is Billye Okera, who is a powerhouse of a poet, as you're about to hear. And we are excited and honored that she is sharing her poetry for viewers right here on CTV. Again, Billye Okera.
This piece is called "I Am." What do you ask of us, you who were everything before nothing became something? Before you, there was nothing because the nothing was you. You called anything into being, and what you did not call stayed a nothing until that appointed time, until the nothing before time that was you became the everything that you are come to light. And you, that light that lighted you, called from that light your second self, a son one with you because he was in you and you in him. What do you want of us? You who gave all there was ever to give, your life well lived, laid down, your crown mangled and dangled from a broken wood. You could have called the host of sky a million swords to set the world ablaze, phase out the hearts of hellish ones, refusing to see glory. Right now, the whim of arrogant men pretends you could not be and see bleak darkness blowing light into deadwood. They say no prayer, no care for spirit walking. They have no song of worship, no willing sacrifice to give. They grieve for self, choosing not to die to self. They war because they will not choose to love. Your gift was choice. A voice calling from this wilderness. I am, if you but let me be. I am, if you follow me. I am, if you but love as I have loved. I am, if you but let me set you free. I am.
Thank you, Billye
Thank you.
Okera. Oh
Thank
my
you.
gosh, I am. I've not heard that one before.
No, this is well, May 2019, but sometimes I'm sitting and I'm creating on my phone, which I hate, but sometimes you just have to because you're not where you can write it down.
Yeah.
And so I just go back and I'm trying to pull them all out, especially as I plan my next book, Stumbling Toward Calvary, because a lot of them, a lot of that in that book will speak to my journey with spirituality.
Okay,
And
stumbling, and let's talk a little bit about stumbling toward Calvary. Now, that's the latest book that you'll be working
yes, that's the one that's 2021 and
on.
probably later. Because
Okay,
I've, seen the work goes into to producing something. Oh, I got that name actually from my son, and he got it from a sermon he heard from his minister at 19th Street Baptist Church. And I thought, because so many of my stuff is spiritual, but it didn't start from like, at 20 years old, I'm this minister and I'm going to theology school and I'm just really holy person and I'm good and I'm, all that and I'm on my way to heaven and I'm so glad. No, it was a journey through spiritual agnosticism, through, I was never an atheist, but, I was an agnostic. I couldn't figure out who he was or what he was. I called him higher power. But I kept calling him was the thing. I kept calling him. So stumbling towards Calvary is going to be, just looking at the journey where I didn't know, but I kept calling because I knew something was there. And I don't, and even today, do I call him a he or she or it or what? I just knew something was there, and I kept calling that something. And so, so it's been a journey, but it hasn't been this. It's been like that, and it's been down. Sometimes more down and up. So that's what it's going to be. I've been stumbling.
Well, I think that your stumbling is probably more beautiful than many who think that they're plodding along straightforward every day on the path.
Yeah.
So we thank you for sharing your stumbling with us.
Thank you.
Our time has gone so quickly, but I just wanted to first of all thank you again. This is Billye Okera, who is a wonderful poet who is Christ-centered in her writing. Healing channel is what she offers to any that would delve into her work. And certainly here on Sojourn with Words, we're honored that you shared what you have from the heart today. We clearly have to have you back on because there's so much that we could not touch on.
I know. I would look forward to it. Yeah, and I just want to thank you and just congratulate you on the well-earned Poet Laureate of PG County, because I think that was on your head 20 years ago, and the path just seemed to clear itself. But you've worked very hard for it, and thank you for what you do for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, for our viewers, Billye Okera, BILLYEOK@gmail.com. Reach out to her. She is a wealth of knowledge and fortitude. And I know that we are blessed by her offering today. Thank you, Billye. And for those that absolutely, for those that are in the know, pick up that pen, find what's inside your soul, and put pen to paper. You never know. You don't have to have that degree to find what's inside your heart. Sojourn with Words, 15 years on air, continuing to share poetry from every ilk. Thank you so much, Billye Okera. And Sojourn with Words is ready to last. Broken pieces. It's what we do. Hold on to the broken pieces, even when they prick and slice our fingers. So heavy they drag us down into inescapable pits. We hold on, knowing and tending each sliver, each cracked, fractured fragment of a limb, each crumbled corner of consciousness that never got nurtured or held in arms that felt like sunshine. We hold on, defying the ache of deprived dreams turned nightmare day after day. We hold on to each damaged part that no one else sees or knows exists, knowing they must somehow be salvaged for us to one day be whole.